This podcast is brought to you by the Maryland State Library Agency. The MSLA podcast features presenters from statewide youth programs, as well as learning opportunities for library staff and resources for patrons of the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another LBPD guest hour. For those I haven't met, my name is Ashley Biggs. I'm the Marketing and Outreach Librarian for the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. And every month we bring you a guest to kind of talk about, everything from general happenings to mental health, physical health, accessibility, you name it, we talk about it. That's the point, is to bring the world a little bit closer to us. And I reached out to the American Institute of Stress. Stress is a big topic. And I was fortunate enough to get Dr. Josh Briley. And he is going to be talking to us about stress around the holidays. As you know, we're coming up on like 4 major holidays. We've got Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and a few others in there. It's going to be a big deal. So let me introduce Dr. Briley here, and then we'll jump on in. So Dr. Josh Briley is a licensed clinical psychologist with over 20 years experience working with a variety of patient populations. He's a board certified trauma-informed provider, which is amazing, by the way. Dr. Briley, I know you're there because that is very important. Trauma is huge. He's a board certified medical affairs specialist, a certified clinical trauma professional, and a certified compassion fatigue professional. He is a fellow of the American Institute of Stress and an expert in managing stress. He has written several articles and has given interviews on stress management for news stories, podcasts, and he's presented on stress management to first responders, healthcare practitioners, and local communities. In his career, first as a psychologist with the Bureau of Prisons and Veterans Health Administration, it has given him the extensive expertise in the unique psychological needs and challenges facing men, especially today. As a result, Dr. Briley is a staunch advocate for men's mental health. Dr. Briley is also an expert in the use of cranial electrotherapy stimulation and microcurrents in the treatment of anxiety, insomnia, and pain. He has written and spoken extensively on the topic to providers and patients worldwide, because I know it is a developing thing there. Yeah. Additionally, he's very proficient in integrated behavioral health and has trained with primary care providers on the benefits of patients and healthcare systems integrating primary care and behavioral health to be comprehensive and effective in addressing patient needs and improving outcomes. Did I sum it all up right?
You did, and every time I hear my bio summarized like that, I'm like, it feels a little bit like, who is that guy? And a little bit like, oh, no wonder I'm so tired.
It's imposter syndrome. I'm telling you, it's a thing.
Right, exactly.
Before we get started, I want to say for everyone listening, we have talked about stress on this podcast a few years ago. It was actually right around this time. We had a gentleman on talking in general about stress. And I personally believe it's one of the most important topics we can revisit because science continues to evolve around how stress affects our mind, affects our bodies, and it affects society. And our understanding is growing. Before we begin, I want to highlight one key point. Stress is not a personal failure. It is a biological response that every human is wired to experience. How we manage it, how we recover from it, how we support each other is where we go. And I want you to remember that if you are in crisis today, tomorrow, at any point in time, and you want to talk to someone, please dial 988. It is an emergency line. It is not just for suicide, for prevention. You can call it and talk to someone who is caring and compassionate and who will just listen to whatever is happening at the moment. And it's so beneficial. So please, there's also organizations. We have pro bono counseling on our podcast. They have a warm line. NAMI has a warm line. There's so many organizations. You are not alone. with that being said, I want to welcome Dr. Briley. Dr. Briley, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to do this. I do want to echo that stress is not a personal failure. In fact, a lot of us think of stress as a bad thing, but stress is actually crucial. You have to have some level of stress in your life to be able to perform, to be able to grow. If you're not stressed, then if you're not experiencing stress, then you're dead. So it's not a matter, and a lot of patients, a lot of friends and family tell me like, "Oh, I want to get rid of my stress." No, that's what you want to do is manage your stress properly and keep it more in the realms of good stress, where you're functioning and you're energetic and you're firing on all cylinders and you're able to take a break and rest when you need to, and then jump right back in, and not get it to the point where it's harmful for you and you start feeling like exhausted and fatigued. And the longer you stay in that zone, the more detrimental stress is to your medical health as well as mental health. So,
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
100%. And I say the same thing about anxiety and depression too.
Mhm.
I actually give talks on how anxiety is a superpower if you use it right. Yeah.
He is it right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to kick off with the first question. We all think we know what stress is, right? We all think we know the signs of stress. Oh, I forgot this. I've got brain fog. I've got this. I've got that. But what are some of the most early and overlooked signs that someone is experiencing stress, whether it be winter holiday related or just stress in general?
So some of the signs, they can be subtle because they sneak up on us. It's not like we wake up one day and all of a sudden we're under too much stress. Things build, and we're handling it, and we're handling it, we're handling it, and then suddenly we're not. So more fatigue than usual is usually an early sign. Just, you find yourself needing more caffeine to get through the day. Your body might feel tired. Also, just feeling overwhelmed. A lot of times we might think, well, I feel overwhelmed because I have so much to do today, but really our overwhelm feeling is more from the chronic buildup of stress, and we haven't been managing it. And so all of that builds up and builds up and builds up. And suddenly we don't feel like we have enough resources to handle like our day-to-day things. Difficulty sleeping is a good early sign that you're having issues managing your stress, especially if you have a hard time falling asleep, or you're waking up in the middle of the night and have a hard time falling back to sleep because your mind is just running over with like everything that you have to do, everything, all the demands on you. And so those are some good early signs for you to go, oh, I need some help. If you don't pay attention to those, then you get bigger signs like irritability or anger. You find yourself snapping at your spouse or your kids or your coworkers, or you start yelling at traffic, or something, something guilty. Uh, my wife says the only thing that stresses me out is traffic. If I could
Yeah,
get that under control, I'd be great.
I'm
Uh,
guilty of that.
but yeah, it's so there are signs to look out for. It's not just you know feeling emotionally stressed. Your body will give you a lot of warning signs, and your emotions will give you a lot of warning signs before you get to the where you actually are like, oh my gosh, I feel so stressed out. So,
I get that.
yeah.
I think we've all experienced that kind of stress,
Mhm.
and we kind of just write it off as and power through it. We don't
Right.
really
Yeah.
address it. And then it sounds like what you're saying is it just gets worse. So,
Yeah. One of the sayings that actually helped AIS develop this little tagline they have is manage your stress before it manages you.
oh, that's good.
So,
I like that.
yeah.
Um, we're it's December. We are barreling into the winter season, right? And the winter
Right.
months are known to heighten stress and anxiety. But why?
So there's
Why?
a lot of reasons actually. One is the change in weather, right? There's fewer daylight hours because of a variety of things. The rotation of the position of the planet with the sun, but also we keep every year we mess with our clocks twice a year.
My
Um,
husband hates that.
and so when we do that in November, we've all experienced the, oh, now I'm driving to work in the dark. whereas it was, and when I'm coming home, the sun is setting. So, sunlight, it has been shown to be very positive for stress management, mental health, gives, vitamin D production in your body, but also just overall general well-being feeling. I've got friends who make it a point to be outside facing east at the sunrise, and they get those first rays of sunlight hitting their eyes, and it's good for their well-being. It's good for the way they feel throughout the day, and it helps them sleep. It's like resets their nervous system. I've never been able to do that, just because of when I have to be at work. I'm usually in the shower when the sun's coming up, but the friends I have that do it swear by it. They love it.
They're
Um,
recharging their batteries.
and recharging their battery is one way to do
They're
that.
solar powered.
Yeah, another reason is, it's we're winter, especially depending on where you live. The northern part of the country is a lot more gloomy in the winter. Cloudy, snow. You can't really, it's dangerous to step outside because it's so cold. Whereas where I live in Texas, we get maybe 2 weeks of winter, in quotes. you know, but it's still like it can still be very cloudy and gloomy, and so you don't want to go outside. And so the weather definitely plays a part in it as well. You don't go do the things outside that you enjoy doing. You don't get as much time in nature, which is very beneficial for our mental health. And then also just, you mentioned, there's several holidays that fall in the winter. Thanksgiving, which we just had, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, New Year's, all of them, they seem to fall within a few weeks. And so no matter which holiday you observe, there's traditions, there's expectations, there's additional issues regarding scheduling and finances and diet and all of that that go along with it. And so on top of all of our normal stressors that we have 10 or 11 months a year, we add all of this holiday stress to our already overtaxed bodies, and then wonder, why don't I feel good? Why aren't I enjoying my holidays? So,
And that might be a reason for me to like make Christmas a little smaller this year. Just saying.
yes. Yeah. So there's some tips to manage holiday stress,
Yeah.
at least the unique stressors, because some of the unique stressors around holidays, obviously, everything's more crowded, right? All the stores are crowded, all the restaurants are crowded, the streets are crowded. There's the financial, because no matter which holiday you observe, there's gifts associated with it, which are
Right.
great. I'm not downing gifts. But if you're barely making ends meet and now suddenly you've got to buy your kids something or buy your spouse something, you could be trying to figure out how to do this. And
Yeah.
so that's stressful. Even families who aren't necessarily struggling, to make ends meet every, paycheck to paycheck, like our family's gotten so large that there is no way that we're going to buy gifts for everybody. We gave that up decades ago. Like, no, we can't do it. So there's that. But then the biggest stressor I see around the holidays, no matter which holidays you observe, are just the expectations that we put on ourselves.
Mm.
We want it to be perfect. We get these rose-colored memories of the way our parents did it when we were kids. And to us as kids, the holidays were fun. They were great. All our cousins and siblings and aunts and uncles and everybody was over. We saw friends and we played and it was great. And all we remember is the adults going off and doing something and then a meal was presented, right? We didn't see behind the curtain. And now we're
Right.
behind the curtain. And we didn't understand everything our parents went through trying to get that meal on the table or to get those gifts to us. And now we're the ones who are trying to do all that. And we're still trying to make it this picture perfect, Hallmark, Norman Rockwell idyllic thing. And it's just never gonna be. And
It,
so that's one of the biggest things is let go of your expectations. Just do what you gotta do, farm out, delegate what you can delegate, and sit back and remember this is why we do this. It's not about getting everybody their favorite dish. It's about the family getting together and enjoying ourselves and connecting and remembering all the blessings that we have.
I used Boston Market for a few years. It was great.
I know, right?
Um, but you, but
I have gone out to eat on Thanksgiving
yeah,
multiple times, and it's just so much less stressful.
before I had kids, for me it was Chinese food on Christmas Day. It was the
Yep.
best.
Yeah.
You said something earlier, and I want to highlight it, that we have 11 months of stress, and then we add more, just for our own traditions and our ideals. But how can we as individuals differentiate between ordinary seasonal stress, that comes with all these winter things that are going on, and when we need to get help? Because I have seen people, just like you were saying, we get ourselves in a tizzy, to make magic for others, men, women, gathering to make magic for everybody else. When does it cross the line from stress to I need professional help?
So when it starts significantly interfering with your enjoyment of life, or your ability to function. So, like I said, if you, I mean, everybody has occasional insomnia, but if you find that you cannot sleep more often than not for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, then that's a sign that maybe I need to start looking for professional help. If you find that you are losing motivation for things that you normally enjoy, so like there are people, I am not one of them. There are people who love to cook, and and for some of them, that's like an early sign that they're starting to feel depressed or overwhelmed. Is like when they're like, I don't want to cook. Like, I don't want to do it. If you start dreading um, what you have to do that day, not just like, "Ugh, I want the day to be over," but just like, I really don't want to do this. Like, I really don't want to go to work today. I really don't want to talk to this person. I really don't want to deal with my kids today. I mean, we all have days like that, but when you're getting more days like that than not, that's a sign that your mental health is starting to um, give you some warning signs, and it's time to reach out to a counselor or a therapist, clergyman, somebody who's trained to listen and help you with your perspective on things.
Well, and that actually segues completely into my next question, which is what's happening inside your brain. Could you tell me what happens inside the brain, and to an extent the body, as a result, when we allow stress, especially now during the winter holidays, winter, festivities and seasonal things? What happens to our brain and body? Like, what happens?
That's a fairly common question. I love dealing with it. I did an interview, I think, a few years ago, and the topic was, how do I tell my brain that it's an email, not a bear charging me?
I
Um,
like that.
I did too. I was like, that's. I kind of agreed to the interview because of the way they phrased the topic.
I
I'm like, oh,
love
I still
it.
want to talk to you. But it brings up a good point in that, like, what's going on? Our nervous system, our brains, our bodies, our nerves, everything is are designed to keep us safe. And so we're built with this fight or flight response. And so the way it's designed is, back in the days when we were, living in caves or teepees or cabins, and the men were out hunting and the women were, and the children were out, gathering the food and the stuff like that, we were constantly in danger. But, our bodies really only reacted when something happened. So when the bear came across your line of sight, or you heard the mountain lion or something, your fight or flight response kicks on. And what happens physically is you get a lot of adrenaline dumped into your body. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your pulse rate goes up. You get very, very focused on what's in front of you, emotionally focused. You suddenly don't care so much about how pretty the flowers are when there's a bear that is growling at you, right? And then the blood surges away from our core into our extremities. So for two reasons. One, if we get injured, there's less blood, but also so we have the energy to run or to fight or whatever we need to do to survive. It's designed to click on, and then once the threat is gone, to click off. And then once it clicks off, another nervous system takes over called rest and digest, and it undoes everything fight or flight did. So your adrenaline, production slows way down, goes back to normal. You're able emotionally to expand your focus again and notice how pretty the world is. Um, Blood goes back to your core, so you're able to, digest your food that you just ate or whatever. And then you'll find yourself like you get sleepy. It's because your body's repairing itself. But we have set ourselves up in society to where our fight or flight is always on. And if you have something like trauma, it is definitely always on. You never feel safe. And so you're constantly getting this tunnel vision. There's one solution. There's one way to deal with this. I remember when I worked for the VA, I had a veteran, and he had an issue with some of his kids, and he had one solution, which wasn't very healthy, and it had to do with his kids had keys to the lock for his tools, and also blah blah blah, and he was like, I'm gonna, and he was going to all these extremes, and finally, it's like, or change the lock. And he was like, oh, and you could tell that never dawned on him. It's like my favorite example of tunnel vision. Like he couldn't perceive there was another option or even a simpler one.
I've been so guilty of that.
Yeah, we all are. We all are. We get stuck in our way of thinking, and we got to do it this way, and we keep trying over and over again, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and then somebody comes by and goes, instead of trying to go through the wall, why don't you go, over it? Or hey, there's the gate right there, and you're like, oh, I feel like an idiot, right? but we're not emotionally capable of stepping back and looking at, okay, what I'm doing isn't working. So the rest or digest is supposed to offset all of that, but we never give our bodies and minds a chance to get into that situation now because, again, we've always got emails, we've always got jobs, kids, activities, houses, friends. I see all these things on social media about, okay, so I've got to figure it out. I'm supposed to work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, keep the house clean, make sure my kids are fed, make sure my kids are fine, have all these activities. I'm supposed to pay attention to my spouse. I'm supposed to be a good friend. I'm supposed to da 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 da. Like, okay, and and so we never give ourselves a chance to disconnect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, we're just constantly in that fight or flight, and it's behind high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, because in addition to all of everything else being dumped in your system, your body's dumping cortisol into your system, which is a stress hormone, and which raises the blood sugar in your blood because your body thinks you need it. You need that energy to survive.
That's
So
one of the hard and fast rules at my mommy and me club. No cell phones, no work. Because a lot of us are, we're on call. We have multiple cell phones, and it's nope. This is kid enjoy time. And a
it's
couple of the
great. I
dads
like
have
that.
snuck in, and they're like, "Can we turn off our cell phones?" Yes, come join us. Um,
Yeah,
but
we have rules, like no phones at dinner,
yeah,
and just times because we're both on our phone a lot. I mean, she works, I was telling you, she works for AIS, and there's no set hours for that. Like her bosses work all hours of the day or night, and she feels like she has to reply, immediately.
oh yeah,
I'm not as bad. I used to work for a medical device company that was global, and so it wasn't unusual to get a question from a rep in, Singapore at 10 o'clock at night, my time. But I knew they had a doctor that asked the question. So so I responded. With the job I have now, it's more 8 to 5. It's not so much after hours anymore. And so it's easier for me to disconnect. But yeah, so
I'm fortunate.
recently.
My director is like, "Hey, work life balance." That that's
Mhm.
his thing. He's very
Yeah.
But you highlighted something that I think is really important. Stress does some crazy stuff to our body. You mentioned insomnia. So, you know, I'm guessing chronic stress really not only affects sleep, because we know that, but you were talking about diabetes, immune system. So, like, it can have an impact on our physical health.
So stress is, and more and more. So Hans Selye back in the 30s um, discovered this. He's the one who coined the term stress,
Mm,
and is the basis of everything we understand about stress now, and we've built on it from then. And the American Institute of Stress is like a front runner in understanding and managing all this. And their current medical director, Dr. Lewis Coleman, there's a documentary that they are putting out on how stress is like one of the major underlying causes every medical condition we have, every single one of them. And when I talk to primary care providers, they all agree with me. They're all like, "Oh yeah, 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 we know that." And I'm like, "Okay, but then you're not sending the patient to behavioral health. You're not giving them ways to manage their stress. You're just giving them a pill for the symptoms. And if you manage the stress, then a lot of times the medical things, if you haven't gotten to the point of no return, like I've talked to several people who, pre-diabetic, for example,
mhm.
and they come to me and they're pre-diabetic, and we start working on not just diet, they're working with nutrition on diet, but then I start working with them on stress management and healthy lifestyle and changing their perception about things. And the next time, when they're doing all of that, the next time they go to the doctor, the blood sugar levels are normal. They're no longer pre-diabetic. Um, so there's a lot that we can do for ourselves just by learning what stresses us out and how to manage it. And AIS also has, if you can find them on stress.org, members, diplomats, and fellows with the organization can take questionnaires that assess what your specific stressors are. Not just, oh, I'm stressed at work, but what is it about work? You know, is it the deadlines? Is it the coworkers? Is it, something else about it? Or I'm stressed because of home or whatever. So it identifies your specific stressors. And then they have ones that are like, how do you respond? So for example, the Dr. Kirsch, who's the president of AIS, he took the measures, and I remember him saying, that his stress response is perfectionism. And he was like, I always thought that was my superpower. And as somebody who had worked for him, I'm like, yeah, I knew it was a stress response.
I get that, and,
Yeah.
it's really interesting that you say that because, I'm everyone who knows me knows I'm a huge advocate for self-care, especially when it comes to mental health, and there's kind of this thought process that you just gotta power through it, and what I'm hearing you say is that do so at your own risk.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are things we have to do, obviously.
Right.
But one of the first things that, when people are like, oh, I've got so much to do, I've got so much to do. So, stress and anxiety, especially when you get to the higher levels of stress, convince you that you have to do everything right this second, and you have to do them perfectly.
Yes.
And I'm like, really? Like, is the world going to end if you don't mop the floor today? You do it tomorrow instead, or 2 days from now. Like, you know, yes, the floor needs to be mopped, but if you literally can't work it in, it's okay to wait till tomorrow, or something like that. So look at your to do. I recommend a to do list of no more than 3 to 5 items.
Mm.
Because once you start a list of like 10, 12, 15, 20 items, the list itself is stressful.
Oh, yeah.
But you
Yeah.
but put 3 to 5 items on there. And then my recommendation is always do the one where you look at it and go, ugh, I don't want to do that. Get it out of the way. Do it first.
Homework.
And then the rest of your day, you're like, oh, that's behind you. Whereas if you wait till the last, you don't have as much energy. You've been dreading it all day. You've built it up in your mind. So absolutely. And then, if you get the 3 to 5 things done and you still got time in your day, put down 2 or 3 more, you know.
So, all that being said, knowing that it has such an adverse effect and that during the holiday season, during the winter season, um, it just piles on. Are there neurological or hormonal challenges for individuals that can make it hard to kind of do that reset that you're saying that we need to do?
There are. So there are some neurological conditions, the autism spectrum, you know, ADHD spectrum, some others, like that, that make it hard to get out of your rhythm or to be flexible. And so what you find with individuals like this is they're either going 90 miles an hour or they're paralyzed. You know, not like physically paralyzed, obviously, but
No,
like
yeah.
they emotionally, like they can't, they can't get anything. That like they can't get themselves started. And then hormonal, we all talk about women's cycles, of course, but men have cycles too. And so there are times where you don't have as many psychological resources. I've had one patient who called it spoons. She has so
Oh,
many
dear.
spoons, and she would tell somebody, and she learned to manage her life like that. And if somebody calls like, "Hey, we want to go do this. Do you want to go?" And she'd be like, "I don't have the spoons for that today." Which I was like, "Ooh, I'm stealing that." So
For those
it's
who
just a
don't know,
good way to do
spoons
it.
is a thing that happens in the chronic illness community and the mental health
Hmm.
community. It's a way of basically explaining to others where your energy level is. If everyone gets 4 spoons for the entire day, what might take you 1 spoon to shower, get dressed, go to work, and do 8 hours of work might take someone 3. So the idea is that we each start our day with a set number and we pace ourselves so that we don't run out. If you're like me, however, and many, many others, I'm sure, we run out of spoons and start using forks.
Exactly. I saw one, I can't remember who it was. I saw it on social media. It was a video. I like shared it with everybody I knew. But it was a woman who said that she has started anytime somebody asks her to do something and she starts trying to rearrange her schedule in her head to make it fit, she automatically says no.
Oh, I like that.
And it's not like, no, I'm never going to do this. It's no, I can't do this today. And so somebody's like, hey, and she goes, and it could be something fun. Like, do you want to get coffee? I'm available at 7. And they're like, and she's like, well, I've got, my Pilates class at 7:30. But if I do this and I get the kids dropped off early and I can get there by 7, and if I leave by 7:15, I still make it the Pilates. And oh, but I got to do this. And well, maybe I can. Then she goes, once she realizes she's in that cycle, she just goes, you know what? I would love to meet with you, but I just can't today. Let's schedule it for later.
And people, what you were saying, individuals who have neuroprocessing differences, individuals who have uh, autonomic, I shouldn't say neuro, I should say autonomic differences,
Mhm.
um, or perhaps hormonal differences may not be able to do that. They have to go 90 miles an hour or they freeze, or
Right.
after everything's done, they have a hard time bringing themselves back to self care. Is that what I
Yes.
heard you say?
Yes, exactly. And so a lot of times, they just need somebody who understands. Because because what happens if you have a family member who, has ADHD, for example, is the tendency is to just hound them, right? You said you were going to do the dishes. You said you were going to do the dishes. You said, well, that shuts them down even more.
Mm.
And so it's, hey, I know you want to get the dishes done today. What do I need to do? Do you need me just to be in the room with you? Because sometimes that body doubling helps, just having another person there. Um, then suddenly they're like, oh, I can go do this now. Or do you need me to like leave? Do you need me to not be in the house? Am I a distractor? And stuff like that. So, and then same, people on the autism spectrum, sometimes they just need somebody to help them get back on schedule. Somebody that can soothe them, because they're not, their attempts to self-soothe sometimes aren't effective, the rocking and the noises and all that,
The sending
because
out.
they can, because everybody else is getting ramped up from their attempts to self-soothe. And so sometimes they just need somebody who will just sit with them and help bring them down.
During this time of the year, my heart goes out to a lot of individuals, regardless of neuroprocessing differences, autonomic differences, because routine gets interrupted. Routine gets interrupted in the winter so much.
So many times. Yeah.
Not just because of the holidays, but because if you're in school, you are suddenly on a break. If you are someone who is working, whether it be in the office or at home, you suddenly have to deal with childcare that was not there, that is no longer there. You have to do with there's a lot of routine upsets.
Mhm.
And what I'm hearing you say, and I'm going to end it with a question, is when the stress is over, the winter stress, the holiday stress, when it's over, it's really important to go back to our routines to manage our stress. So, how important is that routine?
So our bodies are designed on routines. I noticed this at a young age. I was a distance runner in junior high, high school. And one year, normally I took the summer off, of course, like most kids, but one year because of extracurricular competitions I was doing, I ran throughout the summer, was training, and I always trained at a certain time. And then school, I trained at a certain time. And then spring break came, and I remember this vividly. We'd gone out of town. We were on vacation. We were like in a mall or something, shopping, and all of a sudden, like I was just almost vibrating. Like I had so much energy, and I was just like I was begging my mom, just let me run to the hotel. And I had no idea how far away it was. I have no idea. I had no idea how to get there, but I was just like, just let me run. Just and she was like, obviously, no, you can't do that. You're 16-year-old kid in a strange town. But it took a few days for my body to get out of that rhythm. And now, like, we, our bodies get tired about the same time. We tend to wake up about the same time. We go to work at the same time. We eat at the same time. And so our bodies get used to that routine. And so it knows what to expect. And so it knows when to let you feel hungry. It knows when to let you feel sleepy. It knows when to wake you up. And when that gets disrupted, it causes more stress. And so it's very important. Don't be rigid in your routine. Flexibility is important for mental health, but it is important to establish a schedule and a routine. One of the first things that go with people who are depressed is that schedule. They'll stay in
Mhm.
bed all day, or if they get up, they'll go watch TV all day. They're not really doing anything. And they'll notice that, like, hey, I have a doctor's appointment today, so I have to get up and I have to take a shower and I have to get dressed and I have to be presentable. And then I go and so when they go to the doctor's appointment, they're feeling better because
Right.
they've gone out and done things that they're getting out of their house, but there's also a routine they're following. And even with addictions, like I do addiction treatments as well. And I tell them, like, downtime and boredom is your enemy. Like you have to have a routine. You have to stick to it. You have to have
Mhm.
social support, you know, and that's important for all of us. And then it's also important to be gentle with ourselves, because whether you have an autonomic issue or not, or you have an, neurological difference or not, or anything like that, none of us are at 100% every day. And sometimes the best you can do is the bare minimum. And that's okay,
And
because some days you're firing on all cylinders and you can make up for it. So,
right. And that actually that's perfect segue, because one of the things that happens, I think, and you please tell me if I'm wrong, is that especially during the pylon of pylons of the winter time period, the winter season, is that some people reach burnout because they've lost their routine, they have lost their coping mechanisms, or perhaps they have indulged in unhealthy ones, or something like that, and they trip into burnout, which is another level of stress that I can see, and it's completely different. It is beyond what people think, and some people try to power through it. So what is actually the best way? What are the most effective steps to recover if you recognize you're burnt out?
I recently just my certification in compassion fatigue and burnout are very similar. Compassion fatigue is more towards caregivers and healthcare providers and stuff. It's like a specific type of stress. But if you don't manage it, it leads to burnout, which anybody can experience burnout. Um, but one of the presenters on there, in the course I was taking for it was like by the very, because a lot of people for burnout will be like, oh, just, you know, double down on your self-care and make sure you're exercising and all this. And they're like, but by the very nature of burnout, you've gone too far to self-care.
Mhm.
Like you can't do it by yourself. So for burnout, it's important to connect connect with people who are in your corner, connect with your higher power, connect with nature, find things that make you laugh. We underestimate the power of laughter in our physical and mental health.
Really?
But like, and I've told all my patients this for decades, is the bad things that are happening now are the funny stories you're going to tell later. Right?
Okay.
And I've said that so much that I actually went on a 2-week vacation to Florida around the time I was working with the veterans. And when we landed back home, I was like, wait a minute, this trip was like flawless. Like I don't have any funny stories to tell about it. Like I was kind of disappointed. But I've got stories where like, I was headed to work one day and realized I forgot something at the house, turned around, ran in, got it. I was in the house for like 30 seconds, came back out, my battery was dead. And then it was just, I've used this example in an article I wrote for AIS. You can find it on there. It's called Let Go and Get Control. There's nobody around, like everybody going to work in my neighborhood. Like there's nobody to jump my car off. I called the tow truck. Tow truck had mechanical issues. It couldn't come out. Like it was just one thing after another, after another, after another. And I found myself getting frustrated and I stopped and I was like, okay, wait a minute. What can I do with this? Because suddenly, like, I have time stuck at home, right? I can't. So, I took care of some things at the house, finally called someone to give me a ride to work. Like, it's a funny story I tell now. This is like, and it could have just ruined my entire day. But I was able to stop and say, okay, wait a minute, this is actually kind of funny, and laugh about it. Another thing that as adults we're really bad about not doing is play. Kids play, right? You get two kids together and they're going to go off and they're making up their own games. They're using their imagination. They're playing. Adults don't do that. And it is so important as a stress management and to help you cope with like burnout and all of this stuff to just play, you know?
That's really funny you say that. One of the things that I I was born in the 80s and it was a structured childhood. You didn't play really. Everything was a way, or at least in my house, everything was like structured. It was, oh, we're going to go play school. We're going to go play cooking. It was always designed to teach kind of thing.
Right.
And that's something that I, as an adult, absolutely struggle with my 2-year-old. Like, she's sitting there playing with her little dolls and they're talking, and I'm like, what do I do? And I literally,
You
I
get a
just
doll
sit
and talk with
there.
them as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels so weird, but
Hmm.
it feels alien and weird. But can I tell you something that is completely insane? In
So
those 5 minutes, I find more joy and more relaxation than I do. I won't say a massage because God, I love a massage, but 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just goofing off with her,
yeah,
my brain is reset. I'm
yeah,
able to then handle everything else I've got to handle for the rest of the day.
yeah. I see things. I see things on social media where couples like they have Nerf gun fights in their house. You're not
I'd
breaking
lose.
anything with a Nerf gun, right? They do water balloon fights outside. They just bring all the things from childhood and do it as adults. Um, and one of some of the creators that I follow, the Gen X content creators, like hosted a cruise recently, and they posted about like big dodgeball tournament they had on there, and they gave the injury report, but they were also like everybody was laughing and having a good time, and just like, but yeah, we don't play enough as adults. And when we do play, again in quotes, it's a game with rules,
Mhm.
right? We might play cards, or we play dice, or we play a board game. And we often find those more stressful because, of course, we're competitive. We want to win, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody else is really competitive and wants to win, and it kills it for the rest of us, or
Right.
whatever. Sometimes, if everybody can relax and just enjoy it and play to have fun, then it can be okay. But a lot of times, just that unstructured, do something silly, have a pillow fight. Who cares? Something like that. It can be a lot of fun.
I'm gonna throw the plug for some of those I'm gonna call them newfangled card games, that started off with like Cards versus Humanity kind of
Right.
games, but then it's turned into like what do you mean, new phone, who dis, that kind of thing. I have one called You're Getting Old, a game for aging millennials.
Oh,
I
I
put
haven't seen
my
that one.
13-year-old in this game and he lost.
Obviously.
And but that's but I guess what I'm saying is that's we don't I don't do that. I don't that's not something that we really do as adults. We have my husband and I we got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to get this done. We don't have time to play. We
Right.
have other obligations. And what you're saying is that we have to have unstructured time.
Yes. Yes. Take that unstructured time, take 5 or 10 minutes, have a Nerf gun fight, throw a ball back and forth, something. And then you'll find that when you go back to those obligations you have, A, they don't feel as heavy. And B, you probably get them done a lot faster, and you're carrying that joy with you. And so now the two of you are laughing instead of biting each other's heads off because he's in the way while you're trying to cook, and you're in the way when he's trying to empty the dishwasher, or whatever. My wife and I are, like, she gets a little frustrated at times with me, but I'm constantly just walking by and I'll tickle her or something. And, she starts, is laughing, and it makes me so happy. It's just that it's just 5 seconds of nothing but childlike joy.
Build emotional and physical resilience is what I hear you
Yes.
say.
Yes.
Which was
Exactly.
my next question, was like, how do we build this but you're basically saying take time.
Take time, play, laugh, use your imagination. Again, that's something that kids do naturally that we don't do as adults. We call it daydreaming, again in quotes, and it's a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and what's real. And so one way to look at it is we use our imagination all the time. We just awfulize with it, right? We think about every way everything can go wrong, and our bodies react as if it's going wrong. But if we were to imagine, say you're a person who likes to go to the beach and relax and all of this, you can turn on that white noise that's the beach sounds. You hear the waves and the seagulls and all that, and close your eyes and imagine that you're at the beach, and your body will react as if you're there. I mean, you're not going to get sunburn, but you'll get the
That would be a
relaxing
bad
part
thing.
of it. I had, when I worked for the prisons, um, during my internship, I had an inmate constantly in fights, constantly angry, constantly in fights. And I was working with her, and I would give her all the stress management things and just do this and just walk away and count to 10 and take deep breaths. And I would do all that. And I mean, none of it worked. She would try it, but what would happen is, as she was counting to 10, she was getting more and more angry, which I also find happens to me. Like, because I may be going 1, 2, 3, but my brain's going 10, 9,
Yeah.
8. It's counting down to explosion.
I have teenagers,
Uh,
dude. I got that one.
but like, I was talking to her, and she had no history of aggression or fighting or violence prior to getting incarcerated. And so I asked her, I was like, well, what did you do out there to deal with your stress and anger? And her parents owned a junkyard. And so when she was really overwhelmed or angry or stressed out, she would grab a sledgehammer and just go beat up some old clunker. and get everything out. And so I said, okay, well, when you start feeling stressed, get off by yourself, close your eyes, and imagine that you're beating up some little clunker. And I had maybe 2 more sessions with her, and she was all better. So use your imagination, connect with people, connect with nature, play. Those are things that we don't think about as self care, but they are so important.
I want to close out our conversation with understanding healthy boundaries and stress. That is something
Big
that
issue around the holidays.
yes, yes. Not just it doesn't matter what holiday you celebrate. It doesn't matter if you celebrate at all. This time of year, uh, people tend to blur their lines, their boundary lines.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's to accommodate, sometimes it's out of what they think is kindness. But what advice would you give to help people set and maintain healthy boundaries, thereby reducing stress before it gets too late into the winter season?
So for most of us, we have this history of allowing family and friends to violate boundaries, not just at holidays, but other times. And so once you realize, oh, this is happening, and you do start making changes, understand that your family and friends are not going to like it. So that's the first thing you got to prepare yourself for, is the stress of actually doing it, and the pushback you're going to get. But then it's, anything that and there's a lot of different ways. One is, what I was talking about earlier, about if you find you're having to like rearrange your schedule in your head to accommodate somebody, that's a good sign that, nope, that's a boundary I need to set. That, I need to protect my time. I need to protect my well-being. If people are infringing upon like your personal time or your time with your family, like your immediate family, spouse, kids, whomever, that's a healthy boundary to set. It's like, no, we need time together. We need to stay connected. Because especially if you have kids, doesn't matter how old they are, you have a limited time with them. Um, and then they're gone. And then you're an empty nester with luck. And
I
but
don't
even
believe
if
that
even
phrase.
if
I
they
think we're
still
all,
yeah,
even if you have
even
dogs and cats, you're never an empty nester.
yeah, but I mean, like with your kids, like that's where we are now. Both of our daughters are grown and they're out and they're doing their own things. And we're like, no, y'all can come visit, right? Like you're gonna so it just changes everything. And so that opportunity you had to have the spontaneous time with your kids is gone. So when you have them at home, you need to prioritize that. And everybody's boundaries are different. So again, if a good rule of thumb is, if you get that ick feeling from something somebody's asking, then it's okay to say no. I don't have them with me. I'll try to remember them. Dr. Gabor Mate has 5 questions to ask, that I use for boundaries. One is, what am I saying yes to that my body's saying no to? What does this mean about me? Like, who am I if I say no? I'm not going to remember all 5 of them. So I'll hit the ones that are most important to me, but those 2 are big. But then another one is, what am I saying no to that I should say yes to? And that's usually where the self-care falls in. But you can look them up, you can Google it. It's Dr. Mate, Mate, or you can ask ChatGPT to find them for you. His 5 questions.
As a
They're
librarian, I'm going to say no. No to ChatGPT. Ask a librarian. We will find them for you.
Ask the librarian, they will find it for you. Yes, but yeah, it's the information is really available on his 5 questions, because I heard it in a training, and then like when I was doing a presentation, um, I looked it up to see what they were and included them in the presentation, and they always seem to resonate with people. But that's the main thing to pay attention to with your boundaries, is where is your body saying no? You get that ick feeling, that like, ugh, I don't want to do that, but then you kind of make yourself do it to be nice. And I mean, it's important to be flexible. Obviously, there's things that we all have to do that we may not necessarily want to, but if it's happening all the time, that's a good sign that, no, I need a boundary here. That, yeah, I'll do this when I can, but I can't do it today.
And
So
you said something very important at the beginning. As someone who has set boundaries with friends and family, I can tell you it is incredibly stressful to do it and hold it.
yes,
Especially during this time of year, with the winter holidays, there is an expectation that you show up, that you are your best possible self,
exactly.
and um, there's not a lot of room for give in that image that people have of you. So what I'm hearing you say is that if you are going to set a healthy boundary, be prepared for the stress that it will cause you. And that is
Yes.
in addition to the stress of the winter holidays.
Right. But when I have clients who do that, I also tell them keep in mind that that's the other person's issue. It's not yours.
Ah,
Don't take it on,
really?
you know. But yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier is probably the biggest stressor around this time of year, around the holidays, is expectations. Our expectations of ourselves, our friends and family's expectations of us. I was having blood drawn for blood work a few weeks ago. And the phlebotomist was like, "What are you doing for the holidays?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I haven't been told yet." That's the benefit of being, the guy in the dynamic. I just do what I'm told. But I was like, I don't know. I said, I think everybody's coming to our house, and then she launched into like she and her husband have been married 2 months. Everybody wants to come to their house. Her in-laws want to come. Then her parents invited themselves over. She has a full-time job. She's working Wednesday, the day before and the day after Thanksgiving, and they're all making like requests that they expect her to cook. And she's like, and I'm going to do it because, and I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, you're putting all this on yourself. You could easily say, you know what, I would love to have y'all over. You want this dish? Would you mind bringing it? You know, or can you show up a little bit early and I will schedule time for you to use the stove or the oven? You don't have to do it all on your own. You don't have to go to every event you're invited to. Just last week, I was invited to 2 different Thanksgiving things at the same time for work. And I mean, I had to tell one of them, no, I can't. I'm, I've got a conflict. And they were like, what? I'm like, sorry, but I can't physically be in 2 places at one time. So,
You know what? I gotta sing the praises for some of these restaurants that have these great meal deals. I'm just gonna throw it out there that
mhm,
um, I love to cook. I do. I love to bake. Baking is my thing.
there you
Um,
go.
but I'm also years ago, I stopped stressing. I'm like, you know what? Popeye's fried chicken. It's great. That is what we're having. And I think that's what we had one year. A partner and I had one year for Thanksgiving. Um, Instead of, oh, we're gonna have 10, 15 people over, big turkey, all these sides. No, I placed an order, I picked it up, and I put it out, and that's what everyone ate.
Yeah.
It was great.
We did that in my first marriage when my daughter was, I don't know, maybe 3. We had my in-laws over. It was the first time we hadn't gone to them.
Mm.
And my wife spent the day, we had a tiny galley kitchen. She spent the day cooking. And anytime the two of us dared to step into the kitchen to get a glass of water or ask her a question or whatever, she was very irritable and, rah, 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 rah. And then, of course, like the parents showed up late, and it was just a very, very stressful day overall. And at the end of the day, she was like, "Oh, so much fun. I can't wait to do that again next year." I'm like, no, no. Like, I understand, like, her mom worked for a major retailer. So she was working, actually Christmas Day for the
Ouch.
pre-Black Friday stuff. And I'm like, I understand that we can't go to your parents' house anymore for this reason, but we are going out to eat from now on. Like, we are going out to eat. And for years we did. And it was great because, you didn't want turkey and dressing and all that. You didn't have to have it, So it was wonderful.
But again, it's setting healthy expectations for yourself
Exactly.
and holding yourself to them.
Exactly.
Regardless of what everybody else says, holding yourself to your comfort level will reduce
Right.
stress
Yes, it
in the
will.
long term. It might be
And
it might be
managing,
stressful in the moment.
Yeah, managing your own expectations. I also tell people like every holiday have traditions, every family have traditions, and we do things because that's the way we've always done it, right? We don't usually look at them. But I kind of cynically tell people that tradition is just a rut with good PR. So look at it, and does this fit our family now? Does this fit our situation now? And if you're literally only doing it because it's the way grandma did it and her grandma did it and everybody else, look at maybe getting rid of it or changing it. You know, one good thing about like, my marriage and my in-laws now is, when somebody new comes into the family, they incorporate, what is it you like to do? Okay, well, we're going to start doing that so that you feel included. And some of the things that I'm sure they've done when, my wife and her brother were young have gone by the wayside to make room for these new things. I know in our family, like especially Christmas, a lot of the traditions that we grew up doing when it was my mom, my dad, my brother, and me, we've let go of because now there's like 20 of us total.
Yeah.
We have kids, our kids are grown and have significant others. We're not even into the like great grandkid generation yet. But we're all like, it's just too big to do what we did when it was just the four of us. So
Well, I want to thank you for being here. This has been a great conversation and a good reminder that stress can be healthy, but when you overdo it, stress
right. Manage your
stress is
stress
bad.
before it manages you.
I
Exactly.
love that line. Manage stress before it manages you. As someone who exists in a world of chronic stress, I thank you so much. Um, you know, uh, for four bonus kids and a toddler ranging the ages of 2 to 18. I'm woo.
Yes, you have all the stress.
I have all the
But
stress.
yeah, and just
But
another plug for AIS,
oh
visit
yeah.
stress.org. They have a ton of resources. I mentioned I've written articles for them. They do 2 publications a quarter. They have podcasts, they have webinars. They have all sorts of, they have like assessments, documentaries, videos, all sorts of things to teach you how to manage your stress.
I was actually just getting ready to say that AIS, the American Institute of Stress, had a podcast, but also there are some videos not only on the website but on YouTube that are very, very beneficial if you are someone suffering from burnout. Because it talks one of the videos, I think it was only like 5 minutes long, was just a pep talk. Like
Yeah.
that was it. It was just a pep talk that you needed in the moment. Like almost like honest meditation, if you remember that app from like 20 years ago. Uh,
Yes.
but yeah, it was like a hey, you know what? It's not worth it. Don't do it. If it's going to stress you out to that point, don't do it.
Yeah.
And to hear a medical professional, a psychologist was who was saying it, say it. It was great. I was like,
Yeah.
it's carte blanche. I love it. Thank you for being here. AIS
Thank you for
is an
having me.
amazing organization. If you have not checked them out, please do. Dr. Briley, you hang on for one quick second so that we can wrap up in the after. Um, as we are going into the holiday season, please know that you are not alone in your stress. And if you do need immediate help, even if it's not what someone else would consider a crisis, it is not up to them to determine that it's a crisis.
Exactly.
It is up to you. If you need 5 minutes to walk off and call someone, do it. If you need 5 minutes, I love DBT. DBT is my thing. That is dialectical behavioral therapy. You can walk to your freezer, grab an ice pack, and put it on your chakra points, as I was told. Your head, your heart, your stomach, your knees. Um, you know,
Back to your neck works really well too.
yeah. And if you don't have
Mhm.
that, a wet rag.
Mhm.
Um, there are all sorts of things out there that can help you manage stress, but the biggest one I want to emphasize is if you are in crisis or if you feel that you are getting to a crisis point, dial 988. It will benefit you, and there is no stigma. There is no stigma. Please understand that there are compassionate, kind people in this world who will hear you. So, Dr. Briley, you hang on. Everyone, I will see you, hear you, talk to you in January. and have a great winter.
This has been a presentation of the Maryland State Library Agency. For links to additional resources provided by today's presenter, please visit the show notes. For more information on MSLA or the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, visit marylandlibraries.org.